Okay, well the first thing to say is thank you so much for coming. This is about double the size of the audience I was expecting, so you're extremely welcome. Just feel free to, be part of it. So yes, I'm a singer and folk musician. I've done Chepstow, but I also for last year have been running a podcast which is all about traditional music and the sometimes weird and unusual stories that sit behind it. So today you can expect songs. I've got lots of songs, got some tunes, got some stories, some tall tales, a little bit of poetry, a bit of joining in if you want to. So if there's a chorus and you feel like joining in, join in. And there's other bits and pieces as well. At one point I will play a jig. Please dance. And if you don't want to dance, clap, stomp, whatever you would like to do. So it's a participative show. But we're going to start with something very, very old. So the first song I'm going to talk about has got some brilliant stories. But it's based on a story that's 850 years old, which is coincidentally the same age as the original church that was on the site, as I was doing a bit of research. So I thought, well, let's do a little song from that era to get us in a medieval mood. And I've got it's very short, it's less than a minute long. It's a song to St. Nicholas, and we're in St. Nicholas's church, so what could be more perfect? Now, you might know that in medieval times they didn't have harmony in the same way that we do now, they had drones. So if you would like to, you can do a drone for this song while I sing it. And as I say, it's a short song, so you only have to do this for less than a minute, but if you're up for it, it's here. So. Okay, so if you'd like to give me a drone. And then if you're really feeling sassy, you can go into the fifth, which is. St. Nicholas, beloved of God, build us a beautiful house and bring us safely from birth to death, which I think is really beautiful. So we're in a medieval mood, and I'm going to tell you about this story. So it is a story of scandal. It is a royal scandal. It's 850 years old, so I'm going to tell you about who is in this story. 3 people, as you might guess. The first of which is a king, King Henry II, who is not a very well-known Henry. What do we know about him? He was a pretty good king. He wasn't bad. He was a short, stocky character. He was quite scruffy. He didn't make a great. Didn't make a lot of his appearance, and he was quite moody as well. He was brooding and moody, a bit of an emo. But he was very popular with the women. And I think being a king probably helped him a little bit there, because otherwise he was quite unremarkable. The second person in the story is his wife. Now, I am a big fan of hers, Eleanor of Aquitaine. We have a daughter called Eleanor, who is named after Eleanor of Aquitaine, because she was just so brilliant. She was already a queen when she married Henry. She was much better than him. She ruled over her court in Poitiers, which was the most cultured court in the whole of Europe. She was a patron for music and arts. She was a brilliant military strategist. She was just, in many, many ways, better than Henry. So history has not treated her kindly, because she was very, very different from the ideal of womanhood in medieval times, which was to be beautiful and demure, and very much like Henry's mistress. Please do come in and sit down. So, Henry's mistress, fair Rosamond Clifford, even her name means the pharaohs of the world. And she had a tragic story. She was Henry's mistress, pretty much all we know about her. She was the daughter of a knight, and she died young. And since her death, many stories have grown up around this sort of romantic story of this doomed love and this beautiful woman, the evil Queen Eleanor. Now I'm going to read you one of the very early ones because it is hilarious. It's from the 14th century, and it's an extract from the French Chronicle of London. There will be a song in it. So, here we go. In this year, the Queen was shamefully hooted and reviled at London Bridge as she was desiring to go from the Tower to Westminster, and this because she had caused a gentle damsel to be put to death, the most beauteous that was known, and imputed to her that she was the king's concubine. So the Queen had caused a bath to be prepared, and then made the beauteous damsel enter therein. And forthwith she made a wicked old hag beat this beauteous damsel upon both her arms with a staff. And then, so soon as ever the blood gushed forth, there came another execrable sorceress, and brought 2 frightful toads upon a trowel, and put them on the breasts of the gentle damsel, whereupon they immediately seized her breasts and began to suck. 2 other old hags also held her arms stretched out, so that the beauteous damsel might not be able to sink down into the water until all the blood that was in her body had run out. And all the time that the filthy toads were sucking at the breasts of this most beauteous damsel, the Queen, laughing the while, mocked her, and had great joy in her heart at being thus revenged upon Rosamond. And when she was dead, the Queen had the body taken and buried in a filthy ditch, and with the body the toads. So there we go, death by toad. You will never hear that story again. So that story did die out because it was too weird, I think, perhaps even for medieval times. But the story that did come up was a very long ballad. It was 52 verses long. I'm not going to sing you 52 verses. But it tells the whole story of Rosamond and Henry and Queen Eleanor. It tells the story of how King Henry built a huge labyrinth under his house at Woodstock, 100 rooms, and to get to his mistress you had to sort of follow a silken thread and work your way through the labyrinth. Great way to hide the mistress from your wife. And then when Henry went away to the wars, as kings used to do, he put one of his knights in charge. The knight was called Sir Thomas. He should have been called Sir Thomas the Useless, because the first thing he did is he goes to Eleanor and he says, Eleanor, the king's mistress is in this labyrinth. Shall I take you to her? And so he does, and Eleanor poisons the poor damsel, the beauteous damsel. But obviously, very long ballads that are 52 verses are not popular these days, but what has survived to us in the United States is a much shorter version, which focuses on how Henry and Rosamond got together. So, Rosamond's brother, young Clifford, was with 2 of his mates riding across Salisbury Plain, and they were telling bragging tales. And the thing that you used to brag about in those days, apparently, was how beautiful your sister was. So Clifford's giving it all this about how lovely his sister was, and King Henry gets to hear about it and thinks, I think I'll have a bit of that. So he invites her to his house. And she starts to cry because she thinks, well, I could have had a normal life, I could have married a lord, I could have had children, now I'm just going to be the king's mistress. And so that's the part of the song that we have left to us. I have a sister, young Clifford said, a sister no man knows. She had the colour of her cheek, like a drop of blood and snow. She had a way Thank you. I'm going to go on to another song now and some more stories and bits and pieces. So we're going to come forward in time, not quite to the present day, but to sort of early 19th century. And we're in the countryside. It's beautiful, it's springtime, it's early in the spring and it's early in the morning. And a ploughboy gets up, he goes out to the fields to do his work. And just as the sun just dips across the horizon, a bird rises up from the fields into the sky, sort of trilling and dripping all these beautiful notes of songs it does. And it is, of course, the lark, the most poetic and the most musical of birds. I did an entire podcast episode just about songs and stories and poems about the larks, because there are so many of them. And the idea of the lark is the bringer of the day, the messenger of the day, and the bringer of summer as well. Goes back along, it goes right back to at least to Chaucer. So in the Knight's Tale he says, the base lark, the messenger of the day, salute in here song, Norway gray, and fiery phoebus riseth up so bright that all the orient laugh at the light. So the sun coming up with the lark's song. Another poet, George Meredith, wrote quite a long poem. I'm going to read you a tiny bit of it, but quite a long poem called The Lark Ascending, just about the trill of the lark's song, and of course it inspired Vaughan Williams to write his very famous The Lark Ascending. He rises and begins to round, he drops the silver chain of sound of many links without a break, in chirrup, whistle, slur and shake, all intervolved and spreading wide like water dimples down a tide, where ripple over curls and eddy into eddy whirls, oppressive hurried notes that run so fleet they scarce are more than one, yet changingly the trills repeat and linger, ringing while they fleet. So that was a little bit of Vaughan Williams, and that was the jig, The Lark in the Morning, which of course is also a song. So actually, before I sing you it, I'm going to read you something. So I found, when I was doing my Lark episode, I found the most beautiful letter about how Cecil Sharp came to collect the song The Lark in the Morning, which I'm going to read to you, and then I'm going to sing you a version of the song. So, December the 23rd, 1931. Dear Sir, I noticed in the Times of October the 9th last that you asked for any memories of the late Cecil Sharp from those who knew him, as you were writing his life. The only time I saw him was about 20 years ago when he came to Luton and gave a delightful lecture on folk songs at the public library. One incident he mentioned has remained in my memory. He He told us he'd heard that a very old folk song, which he had not hitherto recorded, was known in an out-of-the-way village in some corner of England. He accordingly rushed off to secure it before it had died away. On arriving at the place, he was told that there was only one person left who knew it, and this was an aged woman. On arriving at her cottage, he found she'd gone to work in the fields, and after much difficulty, he discovered her engaged in gathering stones off the land. The day was bleak. There was a cutting wind, and the outlook seemed sad as well as unpromising. But when the old woman heard Cecil Sharp's inquiry, the scene changed. She replied that she knew the song. "Shall I sing it to you?" she said, and raising her old weather-worn face to his and taking the lapels of his coat in her hands and closing her eyes, she sang the ancient song in her quavering yet beautiful voice while he rapidly made notes. As I was a-walking one morning in spring, I met a pretty damsel, so sweetly she did sing. And as we were a-walking, these words she did say, there is no life like the ploughboy's all in the month of May. And when the song was finished, she gazed into his eyes in a sort of ecstasy, and in perfect detachment from herself exclaimed, "Isn't it lovely?" The beauty of the picture he presented to us, his complete understanding and comradeship with the old partner who had helped him to rescue from oblivion a work of art as this, and to which he had devoted so much of his life, his excitement and delight in the success of his expedition, which seemed to live again as he spoke to us, remain unforgettable. Yours truly, G. Henry Latchmore. So that's a little bit of background. Now I'm going to sing you a different version of the song, which was collected in Essex by Vaughan. And if you are a fellow Steel Ice fan at all, you might actually know this version, and you can join in if you like.
And out
banishing that guitar now. Okay, so we're going to go, we've been in the countryside, we're going to come to the town now, we're going to go to the mill towns of Northern Ireland. So I was really keen to get an industrial ballad into this show, and it's one that was brought in to me by a guest on the podcast, a really talented young singer called Jenny Higgins. Now, if you know anything about the mills, which I'm sure you do, you'll know that it was very difficult conditions for the workers. It was very dangerous, and before any labour laws were put in place, you know, they could be put into all kinds of dangerous situations, and that included children. So you had to be 12 to work in the mills, but there were lots of small children who told the foreman that they were 12 because their family needed the money. And one of the jobs that children would do is doffing, which is to, on the big spinning machines, take off the full bobbins of cotton and then put empty ones on and tie it up ready to go. So they had to go into the machines. It was quite dangerous, they were breathing in a lot of dust. Now looking after them was usually a woman called a doffing mistress, so she was their overseer. And if you had a really good doffing mistress, that could make the whole difference to your working life as a child or a young person. So this is a song called Doffing Mistress, and it does, as well as talking about her work and so on, it was a very popular song. It has a little hint of early industrial action as well, which is of course how we got these labour laws. So you can see why it was popular in the Northern Irish mill towns and spread very quickly into the Northern England towns as well. So this is a Doffing Mistress. This is a good one to clap along to if you'd like to, or stomp along to. Oh, do you know her, or do you know this new Doffing Mistress that we have got? Elsie Thompson is her name, and she helps the doffers at every frame. Foldy right, fold up, foldy right, fold day. On Monday morning when she comes in, she hangs a coat on the highest pin, turns around then to greet her friends, saying, "Hi, doffers, tie up your ends. Foldy right, fold up, foldy right, fold day." Sometimes the boss, he looks in the door, tie your ends up, doffers, he will roar. Tie our ends up will surely do for Elsie Thompson, but not for you. Shall foldy right, fold up, foldy right, fold day. Yes, tie our ends up will surely do for Elsie Thompson, but not for you. Tie our ends up and leave our frames and wait for Elsie to return again. Foldy right, fold up, foldy right, fold day. Doffing Mistress. How are we doing for time? How much time we've got? Because we've got one more song. Oh, perfect. So we can take our time with this one. So this is a song I absolutely love. It's the most collected song in the English-speaking world. There's well over 100 versions. In fact, there's probably over 100 versions just in the United States. And to introduce this song, I'm going to introduce you to a proper character who I'm sure you've heard of, Samuel Pepys. Samuel Pepys of Great Fire of London fame. You probably also know him as Good for Naughty Man. That's going to come out in this little extra. So, about 9 months before the Great Fire of London, Samuel Pepys was at a party. He'd had a party in his house for the New Year, and he'd invited along a new friend of his called Mrs. Knipp, Elizabeth Knipp. She was an actress, which in itself was a bit of a sensation because theatre had only just come back after Cromwell's time, and women were allowed to act on the stage, which was terribly scandalous. So you had all these new actresses going around being, all independent and strong and terrifying. There was quite a lot of thought that they were probably no better than they should have been. But Samuel really liked Mrs. Knipp. So let me tell you what he wrote. So he was talking about the party and all the company that were there, and he said, "But above all, my dear Mrs. Knipp, with whom I sang, and in perfect pleasure was I to hear her sing, and especially a little Scotch song of Barbary Allen. Now this is the version that she would have sung. In Scarlet Town, where I was bound, there was a fair maid dwelling, whom I had chose to be my own, and her name was Barbary Allen. Okay. And then he said, and then, it being post-night, against my will, I took leave. But before I come to my office, longing for more of her company, I returned and I met them coming home in the coaches. So I got in the coach where Mrs. Nip was, and I got her upon my knee, the coach being full, and I played with her breasts and I sang, and at last set her to her house, and so good night. So naughty Mr. Pepys, but that's the first record we have at all of the song. So it's obviously in circulation then. We don't know if it was a traditional song, we don't know if it was a theatre song, because there were a lot of theatre songs then. But then it just ran amok across the whole of, particularly England and Scotland. Scotland developed its own version with a bit of weird stuff going on in it. And then at some point, it crossed the Atlantic and it went to America. So it probably did that quite early, almost certainly in colonial times. And it found its way up to the southern Appalachian Mountains, to Kentucky, to the Carolinas, which was very remote, very cut off. So it sort of stayed there for about 100 years or so, just fermenting in this amazing musical culture that developed in the Appalachians. And it was rediscovered. So we had our own very polite, nice version of Barbara Allen that everyone learns at school. In Scarlet Town, where I was born, there was a fair maid dwelling. They went off in a different direction with that, and it was rediscovered by a lady called Olive Dame Campbell. Now, she'd gone out to the region. She was an educator. She'd gone out with her husband, John, and they'd been sent to reform the school system in the Southern Appalachians. Now, fair play to them, they went with an open mind and they went to appreciate and understand the culture that was there already and build on that rather than just saying, here's our towny ways and this is how you're going to learn. And the first night they were there was a party and people were doing what they used to do in that region, which was to sing songs. And one of the children stood up and sang a song, and Olive was immediately struck by it. It was only part way through that she realised that she knew the song, that it was a version of Barbara Allen, but she was so impressed by this haunting melody, this different musical culture, that she spent the rest of her life collecting songs, and she persuaded Cecil Sharp to come along as well and collect the songs from the region. And because of that, we've got this incredible wealth of amazing songs from that region. So this is a song that started it all off. So before I sing you it, I'm just going to read you a little extract from the folklorist James Rae that gives you an idea of the power of this ballad. Certainly no one who has ever heard this song sung by women battling their clothes before lonely cabins, or by flatboatmen under the blazing sun on the forks of the Kentucky River, can ever forget the profound impression of almost magic melancholy it produces.
He sent his
Young man, I believe you are dying. A dying man, don't say I am. When a kiss from you could cure me. No better I will never be. If I can't have Barbary Ann. Oh yes, you're low, you are very low, and death is all you dwell. No better you will never be, for you can't have Barbary Ann. As she was going across the field, she heard that dead bell knelling, and every sound of the dead bell rang. Hard-hearted Barbary Ann. Oh, mother, make my bed. Oh, make it long and narrow, for William died for me today. I will die for him tomorrow. Sweet William was buried in the new churchyard, and Barbary in the old one. From the new churchyard sprang a rosy bush, from the old one sprang a green briar. They grew and they grew and they grew so tall, till they could not go any higher. They leaned and they formed a true lover's knot. The red rose all around the green briar. Thank you. So, we're nearly at the end, but I did want to bring it all home to Gloucester, because that last little bit of the song, The Rose and the Briar, that only appears in the American version of Barbara Allen, and it's been sort of transplanted on. It's a really, really old story. You can find it in Transylvania. You can find it in a ballad there called Carrara Cotta. You can find it in Tristan and Isolde. You can find it in Ovid's Metamorphoses, 2,000 years ago. And you can also find it in Gloucester, because Ashley Hutchins wrote a song based in Gloucester with that whole Rose and Briar story. So I thought that would be a really nice way to finish the show, is with the Gloucester version of the Rose and Briar.